Three, two, one. Welcome, world, to episode 41 of the Leaders Podcast. It's Friday. Some of you might be leaving your job, leaving your 9 to 5, wondering why your career lacks purpose and maybe how life dealt you the wrong hand. Well, if that's the case, you came to the right place because today we have on special guest Rania Hoteit, the CEO of ID4A Technologies, who's inspiring the business world not only with her technology, but with her personal story. Rania, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Thank you.
Well, it's not every day we get a female guest to come on the show because in the past we've had, I don't think we had 7 male real leaders in the last 7 episodes. So we need to add up or include more diversity, and we want to share the personal story that you have today. So, Rana, the first question I have for you is tell our viewers a little bit about your background.
Where do you want me to start?
Let's start in Lebanon.
Where I came from, or my professional background. I have a long story.
Let's start from high school. Where are you coming from?
I'm originally from Lebanon. I grew up in Beirut during the Civil War, and I migrated to the United States after I graduated from high school. So I came at the age of 18 to go to college. I started my first business when I was a student, and I launched my second business also 2 years after that. And by the time I finished my second master's degree, I launched my company, ID4A Technologies, which is the company that I run today.
Wow.
That's in brief.
You just kind of zoom through that. You were high school in Lebanon, and then you started a business when you were in school. What was your first business that you launched?
The first business was very similar to what we're doing today, but just think about an older version of it, or version 1.0 of the business. We were doing conceptual design for products and working with companies that need designers to develop their concept ideas for products. And that's what we were doing at the time. So it was a service-based type of company. The second business was a 3D printing platform, and it was the world's first 3D printing platform that was ever built to connect consumers with services. And at the time, also 3D printing was not yet very popular when it comes to consumers, and people only in specialized types of areas and industries knew about it, although it's been around for a long time. So that was the second business we launched, and we also sold it successfully as well. So that's where I came from before founding ID4A.
And where does this drive to become an entrepreneur come from? I mean, for a lot of entrepreneurs that I've interviewed, it's either they come across a problem, they're in a third world country, and they notice some change, and where really does the drive to become an entrepreneur come from initially?
I started to become eager about working and making my own money when I was around the age of 15 or 16. So I would take time after school to take side jobs. And at some point, I got really interested in becoming more independent. So I figured out a way to save up some extra money and start to buy products for cheap and sell them door to door to customers. And that's how my entrepreneurial kind of journey started, without really understanding that that's what I was doing or that's what I was going to become. I just knew that I just had a very independent streak. I was very ambitious, and I wanted to do something of my own. So I started doing that between the ages of 16 and 18 until by the time I moved to the States, I had accumulated a really interesting sales background doing that. But I learned so much from that experience. And it wasn't until the first year in college that I thought, you know what, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and that's what I want to do. And I've always had this leadership drive in me since I was actually really young. So it didn't really become 100% fully clear to me as a realization that this is what I'm going to do and what I'm going to become until I started going to college and working other multiple types of jobs. And then I'm like, no, this is not for me. I want to build something for myself, and I want to think about the future, what I can do, and how I can engage with the world at a much bigger scale than just working small jobs here and there and having a dead end in one of those jobs at some point. So that was really how this started.
And a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays, especially those in tech, will say to if you have that passion to not go to college, to go to coding school, or to just start your own company. Did you stick with college? Did you end up graduating and then go straight into entrepreneurship, or did you stop early?
No, I did not. The last thing I wanted to do is to quit going to
Mm.
college.
Hmm.
I'm a very pro education type of person, not necessarily in the traditional sense, but to me it was really important to continue my education. And I did take the risk of becoming an entrepreneur while being a student, which was also a very unusual path for me to take that other people or very few people might relate to. But I decided to stick with it, um, take the hit, take the risks, make the sacrifices that need to be made, pull the all nighters, work hard, stay silent, not complain, not think about it from the standpoint like, oh, I'm suffering and I'm struggling, because I really, really was. But it wasn't the type of energy I wanted to project out into the world. I wanted to show up all the time that I'm ready for everything that I'm doing, whether that is in class for my projects, whether that is for my finals, whether that is for a client, whether that is for an investor meeting. So I was trying to juggle so many things at the same time, because for me, I wanted it all. I wanted my education. I wanted to go through that and finish it. And I also wanted to build my entrepreneurial path in a way that has a solid foundation for me to continue successfully into the future.
And what would you say? What type of characteristics have really, you know, helped you get through all those struggles? I mean, you were telling me I was working hard, I was studying late night, I kept quiet. You know, what type of characteristics helped you along the way?
I always, when I get asked this question, resilience is the first thing that comes to mind, because it does take a lot of energy from you um, to go through difficulties and bounce back quickly and be able to keep moving forward. Because I came to the States by myself. My family did not come along with me. I only had $1,000 in my pocket. I didn't have parents behind me to fund my education or to support my living even. So I came straight to work. I had to figure out how I'm going to go to college, pay for my school, pay for my living, for everyday life, and get through it all without having to become on the street like a homeless person on the street who doesn't have anything. And to look at myself, loser, you couldn't finish your degree and you couldn't even make money. So for me, the resilience was always the major strength that I was pulling from to continue pushing through challenges and bounce back, because there was a lot of difficulties along the way. It was not easy at all, and there were so many moments that I could have quit and said, you know what, I need to stop. I need to take care of myself differently. I need to maybe focus on just having a nice job and making enough money just to get by, and that's it. But it's not me, it's not my personality, it's not my mindset. So having that resilient nature and that determination to keep pushing through, and also the belief. And I can't tell you how important it is to have a strong belief in what you are trying to create. Because
Mm.
even if everything is against you and all the circumstances are less than ideal to do anything for yourself, when you have that vision and when you have the strong belief that your dreams can come true and your goals can be attainable, you cannot go to bed at night and not think about how you're going to make that work. And for me, that was really the main, that was really the main driver. It was
Right.
just that belief just kept me going throughout everything. And pulling from resilience and determination were other forces that were just driving me through.
Totally. I mean, there's so many, especially my friends, that just don't believe in themselves, and they put themselves in a tough place. And they question what they do on a daily basis. So that's very good advice right there. And so we went through high school. We talked about the couple companies you started, college now, working hard, working your way in the States. Now, walk me through right after you graduated from college and starting the company. What was that like, and what challenges did you run into?
So the first challenge was when I first founded the company. I was in Los Angeles. I wasn't in San Francisco, and at the time, it was end of 2013. The market was so fresh when it comes to technology and startup world. LA was so saturated with businesses like advertising, media, film, music. But when it comes to other areas of technology that are not related to these industries, it was kind of like you're talking to the wall. So when I was trying to seek investments right after graduation, I'm like, listen, this is what um, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need money for, and that's why people were looking at me like, what is this crazy lady talking about? 3D printing and robots and all these exponential technologies and automation and all that stuff. Nobody really was getting what this whole industry is about. So that was one of the biggest challenges at first. And it
Mm,
was within 2 months that I decided, you know what, this is not the right place for me. If I want to scale my business, I need to move somewhere else.
mm.
So we packed. I moved to San Francisco within a month. We had an office. We had an operational staff. We were just up and running within 3, 4 months after I graduated. Um, but other challenges, of course, came along. Like we were trying to, we had an R&D phase that we were going through as well. So there was a phase of heavy investment. We needed very high skilled employees to work with that were not readily available. We had to literally look for them. And we knew that we have to put a large investment up front because we have research and development to do before we can put our software out and before we could
Right.
tell clients, listen, this is what we could do for you. We've done it, we've proved it, we have a proof of concept, we have a product ready, and you can benefit from that. It wasn't something that could be done within a month or two, and it couldn't be done with 100 or $150,000. We had to put in a major investment up front before we were able to hit the ground and run. So it was a lot of pressure in the beginning.
And so you were saying the funding was difficult in LA. And then you came after 4 months of graduating college, you go to San Francisco, you're up and running. But to be up and running, to have an office, to do the R&D, you do need funding. Who did you go to for funding, and what did you learn from that process?
So challenge that I was that I was a woman, to be honest. I was in a male dominated industry, technology and manufacturing. It's a rare place for women to be. And we were doing something very new when it comes to automation technologies for robotic manufacturing. So there were new aspects to the software that we were trying to develop, and we had a very unique business model that was not something that other businesses have done before. So there was a lot of skepticism when it comes to me being a woman founder, being in areas that are heavily dominated by males, that they're not used to accepting women coming in and innovating in these spaces. So it was hard to convince investors from the get-go to put in money in the company. And especially, like I mentioned, we had R&D phase that we needed to invest into. So I literally had to put so much pressure on myself to take out business loans and gather money from different sources in order to get through that initial phase before we were able to have a good solid foundation for investors to hop onto.
Mm.
But once we did, and we were able to get the attention from some of the biggest investors around the world, and I'm really grateful for that. But it wasn't easy to do that right away.
in these business loans, are these institutional loans just from a bank?
Yes,
Wow. Okay. So interesting. So you took loans to get funding later on. I like
yes.
it. I like it a lot. I was just going to read off a quick stat I had. Women only get 2% of venture capital dollars. They make up 50% of our society, obviously, and over our population, and control 60% of America's personal wealth and 85% of personal decisions. So fascinating that only 2% to this day in 2019 still only goes to women. So okay, so we've got the
It
funding down, and now you're growing in research and development. And what did you learn during the R&D phase?
Well, there was a huge learning curve for us to do, and we did change our business model. We kept crafting it and molding it a few times before we settled on a business model that was fully functional for us. Because another part of the business for us too is that we do aside from building automation technologies for advanced manufacturing, we also work with companies to, we provide end-to-end product development for other companies. Basically, companies that have products that they want to take to market, we help them to build their products from scratch, from early concept stage all the way to design, prototyping, manufacturing, distribution to market. So there's a lot for us to learn from our own processes that we're trying to sell to manufacturers and to production houses, but also for us to learn about different verticals that we have to work with when it comes to our product clients. Because working on a medical device is very different than working on an automotive part or working on an aerospace part
Mm.
or doing a wearable or an IoT. So there's a lot of variety in terms of the type of clients that we work with, and there's always a new learning experience for us. But throughout the R&D phase that we had to do in the beginning, we learned so much in terms of what to do and what not to do, who to hire, who not to hire. Because the biggest failures that we had testing in the beginning was hiring the wrong people, because we wanted to get things done and we were rushing through. So we had to put in trust in people and test that out before we decide, are those the right people that will stay with us in the next phase of the business or not? And those were really difficult decisions to make in the beginning. But I would say, since the having highly skilled um, people on the team was a major importance for us to move forward to a phase where we can become a profitable business, investing in the wrong people was a huge loss for us in certain areas that we had to recover from. But those failures taught us so many lessons about how to hire, how to choose people, how to train people, how to, when we think it's worthy of investing and training and educating them, because they will be a huge asset to the business or not. So we built a lot of knowledge when it comes to spotting talent and maintaining talent within the company through those experiences in the beginning. And it became one of the biggest, I would say, drivers for success as we were moving along forward with the business.
Well, it seems like a similar example to many of the other companies who made this list is they're telling us the belief, like you said, that the employees have in the company is really reducing their turnover rates, which is really increasing their profits in the long term, and people coming to work every day motivated by that one belief. So now we have ID4A. So could you describe to me exactly, in a nutshell, what ID4A is?
Yes. So ID4A is a technology company that specializes in building automation software solutions for advanced manufacturing, leveraging exponential technologies such as industrial robots, 3D printing, AI, and so on. We also provide end-to-end product development services for companies that have products that they want to bring to market. So we help them from early concept stage all the way to manufacture and distribution to market. So that's what the business is about. But I'm excited to talk with you about all the social impact work that we're doing through the business. So
Yeah, tell us about that. How is ID4A's social impact distinguished from another software advanced manufacturing company?
absolutely. So we did not build ID4A as a social enterprise. And I think that's one of the major differentiators between us and many companies that are considered impact companies or social
Mm.
enterprises. We built ID4A as a technology for profit company with the vision of innovating within our industry in ways that can become socially impactful and environmentally impactful. So the impact side of the business became integrated within everything that we do. For example, when it comes to automation, one of the major benefits of helping companies automate their processes is our vision is to reduce the exploitation of labor globally. And that's one of the biggest issues when it comes to manufacturing and global production pipelines. And especially that we are within this field, and it's not a field that everyone knows about, but within the global production and the global economy, basically, every product that we use has to go through multiple stages before it gets to global markets. And during those stages, companies have to decide between three strategic choices on how they're going to make their products and where they're going to make them as well.
Mm.
And depending on which strategy that they choose, that will dictate if exploitation happens along the way. And that's where we really come in, because we come in to educate our clients on both ends. Whether they have products that they want to take to market, we make sure that they understand the different factors that are involved when it comes to making the product, and how we can reduce environmental impact and social impact
Mm.
as well from the way we build the product, whether that is through how we decide to design it, what materials to use, what type of processes we decide to also use for production, and where we decide to produce. And at the same time, working with the manufacturers and the producers on how we can help them to automate their processes to eliminate any type of abuses that might happen due to the fact that companies try to maximize their profits by minimizing their costs.
Right. Right.
So when we talk about global production, for example, if companies, let's say, they have to choose between those three strategies that I mentioned, either that is export or local assembly or local production. Let's say a company chooses local production. That means we're going to go to a country or a city. We're going to set up shop. We're going to use local resources, local labor, and we're going to do everything within that location. And normally when companies do that, this is where they can Um, and of course, that comes with a lot of consequences. Companies are driven to maximize their profits by reducing their costs. And one of the ways that they want to do that is by paying as little money as possible to the people that work on making those products. So for us, it's very important to make sure that when we come onto the table and we work with our clients, we are able to influence the processes in a way that we know that we are not profiting uh, any type of human rights abuse when it comes to labor. And automation plays a huge part, and that's what we do. When processes become automated, major things happen. First of all, we are able to increase productivity. We are able to increase efficiency, and when we increase productivity, we are able to also reduce costs. And when we reduce costs, we are able to sell more. We can increase demand on these products, and once you can increase demand, you can actually create demand for more jobs. So we come in to say, listen, we can help you to make more money and reduce your costs without you having to compromise the lives and the dignity of millions of people by abusing labor in the way that you have to abuse in order to make profit. So we show them the way, and we try to use technology to make an impact on making changes on when it comes to shifting and changing the behaviors that are happening within certain companies, to guide them through and help them to get the benefit that they want, which is saving money and making more profits, but without having to abuse people in order to do that. And at the same time, we show them how, if they can make more money by automating certain processes, they can actually enhance the quality of that they can deliver to their employees as well. They can pay them better wages, and they can hire more people, and they can invest more in education as well and in training, and move people from areas that are more that put their lives in danger, and move them into areas that where they can be more innovative, and it's more operational, and it's not necessarily putting their lives or their dignity on the line. Especially that women and girls get the biggest disadvantage from these types of abuses. We have about 40 million people today that are in modern slavery. 25 million of them are women and girls. And out of that, you have about 16 million that are being sexually exploited as well through exploitation of labor in production pipelines. So there are so many layers to how much impact we can have and how much we can maximize our surface area of impact when it comes to these social issues as well.
Rania, talk about impact. Wow, fascinating stuff. And for someone who's not familiar with kind of what you're doing, learn this for the first time, I just kind of want to break that down and see if I even got that right. So you come into these manufacturers who, in the past, maybe have been using very cheap labor, have been going against ethical rights violations, and you come in and you say, not only will my automated software help increase productivity, efficiency, but because it's increasing those two, it's reducing the costs, which means you can then employ and pay your employees a higher wage, thus eliminating your risk for human violations and consumers not purchasing your products and everything in between.
Absolutely. We're eliminating their incentives to do that, which is the root cause of the problem.
The incentive.
When it comes to that. And the saddest part, Kevin, is that there are about 218 million of children between the ages of 5 and 17 who are at work around the world rather than being in school. And they are working in the most dangerous areas, more than half of them, whether that is in manufacturing, mining, agriculture. So not only in manufacturing, they're operating in, but let alone having children have to leave their schools and not being provided the education that they deserve at that age in order to work and in order to be exploited at this really low cost that also companies try to abuse age as well to pay even less money. So there's a lot of there's a huge negative impact on society, and we're talking about over 250 million people that are being affected, 152 million children being in child labor. It's really and the reason is there is one reason that's causing this. And that's greed, and that's need for maximizing profit without understanding that there are ways to do that. Because again, we're business people. We understand you want to make money, and that's why we're in business. We want to be able to make profit. But there are moral and ethical ways to do it, and technology can help so much. We just need to apply the capabilities of technology in order to maximize its benefits when it comes to areas like this, where automation becomes critical to saving people rather than exploiting them.
And Rania, when you say the term modern slavery, are you referring to low-cost labor and unethical
Low
labor?
cost labor, child labor,
Child labor.
sexual exploitation. All these happen within the umbrella of human rights abuses that are happening within production pipelines.
And so your automated software, is that now, is that taking away any jobs?
So that's a great question because, like I mentioned earlier, there is a huge misconception about automation, especially in today's world, because we're going from one phase to another phase. And in that transition phase, there's a lot of ambiguity that's going on. So a lot of people don't understand how automation works, how robotics work. But the benefit of automation is there is a phase where you will experience losses of jobs, but that's mainly when we're applying robotics, right? So when we're trying to replace humans by robots, there is a phase where people will feel that kind of shift. But at the same time, it's the long-term effect that starts to dominate once people start to adapt to these new technologies. Actually, it's proven throughout history, technology never created losses of jobs, never. If we look at over 100, 200 years ago with the Industrial Revolution, every time a new machine came onto the market, there was this huge fear from it. From the computer to the robots, all the way back, if we go even further to the knitting machines, where it all started with automation, really, there was a lot of fear, and people were really scared that there's going to be a tremendous loss of jobs. But the reality is, when you can increase productivity through automation, you increase the demand. And by increasing the demand, you're going to have to create more jobs to fulfill that increase in demand. So that's really the logic that people don't really understand from the get-go. They have to see it at play. Amazon is actually a great modern example of this, because Amazon had increased the number of robots on their within their warehouses, but at the same time, the rate at which they hire people has been steady, and it started to increase. It never went down. So it's just a matter of understanding how the economy works around these technologies, that people don't necessarily have that information from the beginning. But automation means productivity. Productivity means demand. Demand means more jobs.
Fascinating impact. I'm loving it. And can you tell our audience kind of about some of the clients that you've been able to work with, as well as your vision going forward?
Sure. We've worked with NASA, JPL, GE, Samsung, Nokia. We worked with so many startups. So that's just to name a few of the companies, emerging startups as well. There are so many new companies that are coming up, and they have new products, ideas, and IoT products that they want to make. So we're very engaged with the startup community as well.
And then where's the vision going forward? I mean, you're creating some serious impact here. What do you see, not only for your business, but for the industry itself?
Well, we have the vision is to, of course, continue expanding on what we have already built. We want to be able to reach more people with the impact that we can create when it comes to also reducing labor abuses and exploitation around the world. We want to be able to increase our influence when it comes to the education and empowerment of women, because that's another area that we are heavily invested in, especially me being a woman entrepreneur and knowing the struggles that women have to go through in order to start businesses and maintain businesses and invest in businesses. We have made it from the beginning our mission also to engage and invest and make sure that we put in policies in place as well when it comes to our company culture, to make sure we have an even amount of employees between males and females. We try to maintain diversity as much as possible. We envision to have to create more space when it comes to the profits that we make, because now we try to delegate as much as we can from the profits that we make towards investing in social impact initiatives that are not necessarily within our company, but supporting other initiatives and investing in other organizations as well. So we are trying to partner up with as many of them as possible to increase our influence through the profits that we make. So there are different ways that we are trying to increase our impact, not only by actively working on creating it, but also in investing and helping other people that are trying to make impact as well to maximize theirs, because then we can all win. And the vision becomes much easier to achieve if we are all working together in tandem. So it's important that companies build what they build and try to create the impact that they want to create for themselves. But it's also very important to start to think as a community of businesses. How do we come together as different organizations and different leaders and start to help each other out to advance everybody's vision and everybody's initiative in making impact in the area that they're making impact in. So that way we can advance all these causes at the same speed. So we're not only trying to advance one area while, we have thousands of homeless people still on the streets, but we have amazing technologies, right? So we still have so many dichotomies that are going on within our societies, which it does not make sense. Like being in San Francisco, one of the most expensive cities in the world and one of the wealthiest, you still have a major poverty question that we are always faced with. What do we do with homelessness, for example? So again, like, how do we start to balance those forces out to make sure that impact is being distributed as evenly as possible across different areas of society, so we don't keep having these ups and downs and these weird dichotomies and oppositions and contradictions that don't make sense.
Well, Rania, with your experience in working with a lot of these business owners and people who are making these key decisions, have you found that they are making a transition to be thinking about the impact? And really, what is it going to take for us to really have that shift where all businesses are being conscious of their impact?
It's a great question, Kevin. The problem is, here's the thing. The problem is a lot of businesses are so focused on profitability, right? They're focused on, we want to have a great product or service. We want to make money because that's the goal. The goal is the money. The goal is not to, what are we going to do with the money? The goal is to get to the money. But very rarely advance important causes that they want to invest in. So for us, when we come in and work with companies that don't necessarily have the social awareness, we come in and tell them, listen, this is where maybe you can start to think about ways that you can create impact in the type of business that you're doing or the type of product that you're creating. These are the different ways that you can have an environmental impact as well. If you were to operate differently, or if you were to produce this product a little bit differently, or if we were to choose one material over another, this is how we could also participate in saving our planet. So there are different ways that we try to educate the businesses that we work with, depending on the context that they are in. But the majority of the time, the saddest part is that a lot of businesses do not have the vision of making impact. And I think it's really important that businesses start to think about that, because the future will depend on it. Companies that want to sustain themselves and they want to create sustainable growth, they're going to have to participate in also creating a well-being for the environment, well-being in our societies, because our societal well-being is as important as our economic well-being. So Again, we can be making more money, we can be making more profits, but if we're not treating people equally, if we're not paying people the right wages, if we are treating people differently based on their races and sexes and colors of skin, we still have a problem. If we're still making money, but we are profiting from abusing labor or from trashing the planet, we have a problem. So entrepreneurs have a responsibility towards our societies and our environment, because business is not only about profitability, it is about impact. And the future is going to only be merciful towards the companies that integrate impact and maximize their impact while they're maximizing their profit. I think there is a collective awareness that's rising also right now. More and more people are becoming more conscious about how to maximize their impact and how to have social impact and environmental impact. I think we are living in a really good time when it comes to awareness. I just think we need more action, we need more dedication, we need more vision in terms of what are we exactly going to do as individual leaders, as companies and institutions, and how can we start to influence organizations around us that can be supportive to our work and our initiatives in order to grow that impact and scale it faster and make sure that we are distributing these forces equally as well.
I completely agree, and I think it really starts, like you said, with that vision, that leadership. Hence, that's why we got you on the show today, inspire more leaders around the world. And so before you go, run for president and do all that, I want to get you for one last question, and that is, what would you say your definition of a real leader is?
Sure. A real leader is someone who can provide three fundamental deliverables. One is direction or vision. Two is someone who can create support. And three is autonomy. And what I mean by that, a real leader is someone who can have a clear vision of the future, know where they're going, they can see it, they know where they're heading, they have a very clear understanding of what this future is going to look like, even if there is no uncertainty about anything or any guarantees. Vision is the most important aspect of a real leader. Number two is support. And what I mean by that, a real leader must be able to create an efficient support system for their own people to operate efficiently, productively, and in an inspired way as well, where they feel like they're treated well, they are heard, they are engaged, and they are inspired. Autonomy is the third one, which I think it's one of also the most important things a real leader must have. If a leader cannot trust and have confidence in the people that they are leading, that becomes a really difficult thing to do. So it's very important that a leader can also be able to work autonomously without micromanagement. So that trust and confidence in your people is very important. So give them the direction, because without it, what are you doing? Right. They have to know that you have a direction, you have a vision, and you can lead them through that. And two, create that support system so they can operate efficiently. And three, leave them alone and let them be creative and work autonomously. So build that trust and confidence. And I think those are the three major aspects that I think a real leader must have.
I love it. Direction, get the vision, support, inspire that belief we talked about earlier in autonomy, build that environment for others to become leaders. Absolutely. Rania, thank you so much for coming on the show. The last question I will ask you, though, is coming from Lebanon.
Yes.
What would be your advice to a girl right now in Lebanon who might be listening to this?
Well, we're talking about a very diverse group of people. But my message would be to I want to say to any girl around the world, not just from Lebanon, to any girl who is listening, I want to say if you have a dream and you want to achieve it, and if you have a place you feel like it's calling for you to go to, or if you feel like there is any kind of vision that you want to accomplish, have that belief in yourself, be confident about it, and don't let anyone stop you from believing in yourself and from going after what you want. I think that's the most important thing that we need to teach our girls and young women as well, and sometimes older women too. It depends on who we're talking to, but I think having that confidence in yourself, that self-belief, and listening to your own inner voice, that will guide you to where you have to be. And I think that's the most important voice you should tune into, and no one else.
Rania, well said. I enjoyed the conversation today. Learned a ton about everything that you're doing to create impact in this world. And folks, if you're listening to this on audio, if you're watching this on Facebook, and you want to hear more stories like Rania's, go online to www.real-leaders.com and check out the top 100 impact companies of 2019. Inspiration and a handbook right there for you, folks. For Rania Hoteit, I'm Kevin Edwards, telling you all to go out there, be a leader, have a sense of direction, support your staff, and build that autonomy.